What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff. This is the Monday through Friday UAP news show where we try to see what's going on in the world of the UAP phenomenon, get our opinions out there, let you guys know about it. Yes, I know the office is in shambles right now. We're moving studios. Deal with it. But we got a video out for you, so that's the important thing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have recently hit 25,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to 50. We want to get more people out there talking about this thing, and everybody should be following everyone who's covering this thing. Who, if you are someone who's interested in this, if you find other people that are talking about this, that's the point. See, some people, they get all caught up in one people. Well, that person's talking about it, and why are people following them, and why can't this? It's like everybody should be on the same page. Everybody should want to see all facets of this thing. For anybody who is talking about it, should be growing. Why? Because that's the goal, kids. The goal is to get people talking about this. The more the better. So the vetteds of the world, who Patrick, who's doing great work over there, other people out there that are covering this thing, follow them on Twitter, follow them on YouTube, and be part of the conversation overall, and obviously be part of this community here. Follow everybody who's doing this thing. That's the point. It's not about holding other people down. It's about bringing people up so you can get people talking about this thing. That's the important thing. One of these subject matters that has been going around recently, as I saw, even James Fox was talking about this, was this article that came out of the Daily Mail, and there were these two guys who saw and took a picture of a UFO back in 1990. They took the photo. They released the photo. They told some of their friends about it and everything too. And then the story goes that they were visited. They were men in black, as I guess Representative Luna talked about, and how the same thing had to happen to her, except these two guys disappeared. Well, years later, their colleague is speaking out. Here's the article, some of it, not the whole thing. It's a long article, but here's the article from Daily Mail. Two British friends took this UFO picture and then they vanished after a visit from sinister men in dark suits. Now, breaking his silence after 34 years, their old colleague is revealing what happened and said they were not meant to see it. So, as they say in this article in the Highlands, these two guys, they look up and they see something in the sky. And it says it could have been something, the X-Men, Men in Black, but this is rural Scotland. They had a camera with them. They managed to capture some of the images and they cowered in the bushes. They'd taken these to the Daily Record, Scotland's largest circulation newspaper. There's the picture that they took. It's like a plane right near it. And then that's like a really huge ship. And it said that it was about 100 feet long. Apparently, the young men were excited. They didn't know what they saw. Was it a UFO? Was Earth about to be invaded? They talked about it. And then a dark car pulled up outside the hotel, and two mysterious figures dressed in black suits came from the back seat. They called out to the two chefs by names. And then, I guess, two different young men were on breakfast duty the next day as one of the original members of the group, retired chef Richard Grieve, tells Daily Mail today. Said breaking his silence after 34 years, Richard, now 55, spoke to the Mail to describe what happened that night. Said the pair was visibly shaken by whatever was said to them, though they refused to divulge specifics, saying that only the men were from the Royal Navy. Not long after it went hush hush, and they started talking about being followed around. Their demeanor changed. They stopped showing up for work. They went off the rails and they began drinking heavily. He was sacked soon afterwards. The other, who was usually outgoing and larger than life, became introverted and sullen. Within a few months of the visit from the men in the car, they both left the hotel, and I haven't seen them since. Whatever it was that they knew, they were not meant to see it. They never talked about it, but one of them said it was the Americans. And they usually look at it as the Calvine incident. And they spoke a little bit more, and we'll bring in Pavel to talk. But this was the witness kind of years ago. And then James Fox says he spoke to Richard, um, and he talked about a lot of these events, and he said double wow. So there's a lot more to it. Okay, so there's a lot more to the story overall, but I want to bring in Pavel to help me discuss it. So let's bring him in.
Hello, Christian. How are you?
Hey, Pavel, what's going on, man? So yeah, you had brought this story to my attention, and I we were originally going to talk about or see what was going on with that Arrow story because they're trying to figure out what's going on with Arrow, but this thing is really kind of interesting because I guess the first question is this: why, after 34 years is this guy who knew these two gentlemen who disappeared? Why is he deciding to speak now? Is it because the topic's hot? Is it because there's other reasons? Why do you think?
No, so the gist of it is that this incident that took place 34 years ago, um, the picture, the main picture, one of the most close-ups, was actually like a ghost story. It didn't never really existed. There was a rendition that was painted about this picture that is really similar to the actual picture, but this guy came forward with the picture recently, and that's what makes it really interesting because this is one of the UFO pictures that is believed to be the most credible picture, because now we have a few videos. They're not as clear as this picture. If you can see it,
Yeah,
it's actually one of the most impressive ones that I've ever seen. And it's really fascinating that it finally came forward.
yeah,
Uh,
well, so
yeah,
that being said, that picture that that you just talked about, like, so wasn't that, but didn't the whole thing, was that picture alone, wasn't that already, that was turned in by those two guys to the newspaper, right?
yeah. There were only copies of the picture. That those are the ones that were being handled and delivered to many of the investigators and people in the government, but the originals were not. And this guy had one of them. He kept it for 32 years, and now we know what it looks like. Essentially,
And this is the picture here.
yes. And I think that one of the most important parts of this story is when they said it was the Americans. And
Right.
the reason
I
I gave you this story specifically is because two of the people that I've interviewed in my show, I've spoken to them about this topic, not specifically the Calvin UFO, but the fact that the American government is
Right, is
involved
involved
with
again.
some kind of dark tech in the U.S. I don't know if you know the case of the Rendlesham Forest incident, which
Which one is
is
that? Which one
it's
is that?
England's Roswell essentially.
Okay.
It's many of the military people saw an orb,
Mhm,
and one of them had like physical manifestations, and
mhm,
he got like ionic radiation from it.
okay.
And when I spoke to Professor Simon Holland, he
Oh, right.
revealed something that he shouldn't have told me, which is that it's it's American tech, and they believe that this UFO is also American tech, and that's
Th
the reason why these guys were spooked because they were like, "You were not supposed to see that. This is
Right,
American tech," and that's why they disappeared.
and this is back in 1990, so this isn't, whether or not this was more so of that conversation that we even had, the other day about what some of these things are that are zipping around, and there was that one video that we just covered recently, the one from Georgia, right?
Yeah,
And there was this, like, 3 different orbs, and they're moving around, and it was caught, and in my head, when it all kinda looks like it might match up, and whether it's stuff from the T. Townsend Brown aspect of it, the anti-gravity, and then you look at some of these other things and that have might have been working on for years and years and years. Now, this is back in 1990, when this particular thing happened, and the question is, like, from where does this tie up, from stuff that they found, let's say hypothetically in Roswell, and that information and that stuff that they've been building, that they've this whole, like, everything seems to be linking up if you put it all together in a puzzle piece, right? Let's say that
yeah.
it's reverse engineering, and it's like, well, yeah, the reverse engineering program has been going on for so long, and these were one of the tests. And here are these two guys who saw this thing they weren't supposed to see. They released a picture that they weren't supposed to release, and now nobody hears from them anymore. Now, what happened to them? Who the hell knows? Are they chained up in a dungeon somewhere working for some things, or is it something way more nefarious? But
It's kind of funny that the Men in Black concept, how cartoonish it was made by the movie industry,
yeah,
But if you take a deep look at it, really, it's one of the most terrifying
yeah.
aspects of this whole phenomenon. That you get visited by people from a certain agency that tell you to shut the hell up, or you
And
know,
that report happens all the time. Look at some of the stuff. I mean, that you can go through many different cases that happen, but I automatically, because we're talking about James Fox here, I think about the Vargine case, right? And, like, there's tons of stuff inside of that documentary, when you look at Moment of Contact, you look at that documentary of the countless amounts of reports of people and witnesses. You just look at the little girls that said they saw the being, and then the report, the supposed report that they were visited by some people who said, "Hey," and then inside of that whole report was, and this is in Brazil, that Americans show up, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is where this thing goes," and they got heavily involved, and there will be that question from people, and I think rightfully so, where I don't understand why it all works, where it's like, hey, why is it that all these countries, when all these different things happen, and then the Americans get involved and they get carte blanche, and it's like, yeah, okay, go ahead, you guys run this. That's where it can be like, why do other countries just tell Americans to stick it up their rear ends at that point? It's like, why do they, you're in the UK. Why do you get to call jurisdiction here? I don't care. Even if it is US tech. What are you doing? What are you doing kidnapping some of our from some of our peeps? Like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, it's weird. And I would guess that it's because they have something over the rest of the countries that they can use, whatever that is,
Right.
information, whatever that is.
And it goes back to the Roswell side of it. Is like, was that, I mean, it's not documented that that is the first one. It's the one of the most documented ones that people talk about all the time, but then you have the one that even potentially that Grush was talking about with the Vatican back in like the 30s or whatever.
Magenta.
Yeah, so there are other ones, but even that one was said to be taken by the Americans,
Yep.
even back in the 30s. So how long in general was it, and why? Like, they there's and that will go. Let's say that all of that is indeed, there's something there, right? And all of this is like, yeah, whether it's tech, whether it is more knowledge, that makes so much more sense to even tie into the whole Arrow conversation of why Arrow says, no, 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 nothing to see here. No, 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 don't let any information up on FOIA there until we give it away. No, 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 don't let that thing pass, because it's like, yeah, we cannot reveal that we are pulling the strings and doing this. We can't let everybody know that we're doing this, because people will go, exactly what I just kind of asked. Imagine if this is me, some saying, "Hey, why is that allowed to happen?" If the whole world knew about it, then everyone's going to go, "Why do you guys get to do that?" Then it becomes a thing.
Yeah. And that's what they're trying to avoid. That's what
Right.
they mean, the government, when they say societal disruption. It's going
Right.
to be against them, not
Right.
between us.
It's certainly
That's the
part of
point.
it. It's certainly
Yeah.
part of it with that, and even as Grush said, I think it was when he was on Rogan talking about lawsuits,
Yeah.
crimes, all, and that plus the big, reveal, the peek behind the curtain, to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They there will be nothing except to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. So this is one of those things, and I wonder if there's going to be more stories like this that start to emerge. And the question is, what's going to happen to this particular guy, and what is he going to actually say to James Fox? Is he going to be part of, James has this new movie coming out? Is that going to be one of the stories? I really don't know all the way through what James's new doc is. I don't think anybody does, right?
No. I already have like a potential month when it's coming out.
Okay. When do we
It's
know that?
gonna it's I've asked around and they told me that after these 4 weeks pass, when the voice actor
Yeah.
comes back,
Yeah.
it's gonna be at least another 4 weeks of
Okay.
editing, and we're looking at a potential August, September date.
Okay. All right. Look. So we'll see. We'll see. Any final thoughts on this particular story? That, because you had mentioned that it kind of when you read it, it kind of creeped you out a bit. But what it was, it more so what you were just talking about, or is there anything else in particular?
No, it also has a lot to do with, for example, when I spoke to Nick Cook and my podcast, he was very reticent to talk about stuff related to tech made by governments. And he was a defense journalist for many decades. So I get why he would be reticent to talk about this, but it just really shows how much control these people have, especially with uh, journalists who deal with this stuff, because whatever he was told that he can't talk about, He's gonna take that to the grave, man. And he
Yeah.
was one of the most important journalists in that area at the
Right.
time.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So there's so much there, Pavel. Thank you for joining us as always, man. We'll see you on Monday.
Take care, man.
All right. Okay. So what do you guys make of this story? Do you think that it's one of these stories where you hear it and you go, okay, yeah, it's another one. We've heard tons of these stories, but what does it mean in the long run? Is it something that when it comes back around and if there is information that finally comes out, if it goes back to the Tim Burchett stuff where he says, look, somebody's going to come out here and say, here's a picture of this. This is what we did. We have this. We have full proof. We have all this hearing comes out and it just is you can't dispute it anymore. And it's like everybody knows now disclosure happens and then it's more stuff like this that you go, oh, remember when you guys didn't believe that story? Or is it just one of those things that leads up to where you're like, yeah, this is just one of the really kind of creepy stories that you hear that would make a great segment on one of the History Channel shows or anything too, but I don't know if there's anything to it. I'm sure you guys have a lot of different opinions to it. So put your comments in there. Let me know what you think. As always, hit that subscribe button. As I said, build up the community. That's the most important thing. Build up the community, get people talking. What people that are watching, for people in this community, what everybody needs to understand is it's not about just one channel that's growing. It's not about one channel that's doing this. It's not one about, oh, they're watching them, but they're not watching me. That's not what this is about. What this is about is people asking questions and then saying, oh, well, that person just talked about that. Now I'm going to go watch them talk about that because they're talking about the same thing and they ultimately have the same goal. That's the point. And all you do as well, because you want to know and you're curious whether you're believers, whether you are doubters, you just want to find questions. So, because if you're doubters, you're like, just shut these people up already and let's tell us what it is. And if you're believers, you're like, what is happening? And everybody should be on the same page. Stop trying to tear people down and build each other up. Thanks for joining us here today on the show. For myself and Pavel, we'll see you next time.
The other day, my wife walked in. She said, whoa, where those jeans come from? Those are amazing. Those are nice. I said, that's right. It's the perfect jean, baby. Love the perfect jean. Perfect jean makes great looking, perfect fitting jeans. And they're stretchy and they're nice. And they hug your assets in the perfect place. They really do. It's got special denim fabric. It's very soft. It's really great. I've been wearing these and it's super comfortable and they look good. And that's what I needed. And I got it. Trust us when we say these really are the perfect jeans. Because once you try them, you're never going to go back. For a limited time only, my listeners are going to get 15% off their first order plus free shipping. But you got to go to theperfectjean.nyc or Google The Perfect Jean and use the code DTE for 15% off. I love it. I put them on and I was curious at first because they were like, stretchy jeans, do those work? And they do. They feel super comfortable. They look good. And I like wearing them. Super stretchy and great. I felt good, man. Felt good wearing them, and I can move around in them, and I like that. They fit great. Make sure you go to theperfectjean.nyc and use that code DTE. 15% off. Get it.